Ladies and gentlemen, we are rolling and streaming live.
Okay, thank you, Zeke. This is the regular meeting of the Citizens Oversight Committee for the City of Morro Bay, acting as Citizens Finance Advisory Committee. And it is Tuesday, October 20th, 2020 at 3 p.m. And we have 6 members present out of 7, so we have a quorum. First item on the agenda is committee members' announcements and presentations. Would anyone like to say anything? I'm sure we all have something kind to say about Jennifer or to Jennifer. I'd appreciate that if anybody would.
Absolutely. I'll start. I mean, I probably didn't get recorded, so I'm going to do this for posterity, Jen. But as I said to you a minute ago, I didn't get the full pleasure of working with you in the sense that we got to do the face-to-face a little bit more. But it's obvious to my short tenure here what an invaluable resource you've been to this city and to this committee. And obviously you'll be missed. And clearly we wish you the very best. I hope you have fun, and I'm assuming you ski, or if you don't, you will. And don't be a stranger. I know it's an 8-hour drive or, 7-hour drive, depending upon traffic, because I make that drive. But God bless you and happy life. And may we see you again someday.
Thank you.
I clearly speak for myself and for just about everyone I know in the community who is aware of your work, Jen, and that's across the spectrum of everyone who votes for everyone. There's one common factor, and that's how much they respect and appreciate what you have done. Unfortunately, I think we all understood that you were going to move on at some point, and we're just fortunate that you stayed with us as long as you did. Best of luck, and say hello to my niece when you get there. Take care.
Will do. Thanks, Bart.
Hi, Jen. Barbara here. I cannot enumerate all the positive accomplishments and outcomes you've had for our city, but ditto all the other comments. That promotion is very well deserved. You've earned it fully, and we're just sorry. We'll miss you, but feel free to reach out to any of us or use us for reference or take our budget brief with you or whatever else you'd like to do, but we wish you the very best. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Jennifer, I just want to wish you all the best and thank you very much for all your help.
Thanks, Homer.
Okay, my turn. Jen, thank you for everything. I mean, I know that you have not had an easy job. It's been challenging for so many reasons, and you've always maintained a great level of professionalism and made a big difference in this community. And you can leave being very proud. And I know you're gonna just do great. So good luck and thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer, as I mentioned to you the other day when I saw you downtown, whoever takes your place is going to have a much easier job of it than you did because of all the groundwork that you've laid. And just the awards that you've received from, prestigious awards from organizations that know better, that know how good the work is that you're doing, is just evidence of what a great job you've done. And we are going to miss you dearly. I just have a little bit of advice, for someone who is very good at math. When you're the town manager, the most important thing is knowing how to count to 3.
Yes, it is. Very true.
Okay.
Thank you.
So second item on the agenda, are there any other announcements? I'm sorry. Any other announcements from any members?
May I say a few words, Mr. Martin?
You betcha.
Everything you guys said encapsulates it well. And beyond that, just being on the staff side, starting virtually the same time that Jen did, my job was made tremendously easier, knowing that she had the finance side handled. But she's done so much more than that. It's evidenced by the acting public works role. And then when COVID hit, she stepped in and brilliantly conducted the public information officer position, which is not easy, with so much changing so quickly. And beyond that, just how she treats people with so much kindness and compassion, and still get a tremendous amount of productivity out of staff all the same. So we're going to greatly miss her, and we should have an announcement or decision, I should say, on our interim within the next several days or week. So I'd definitely keep CFAC members posted. And then also just wanted to mention that, typically you would see the WARF quarterly update. This time, things were sidetracked a bit with the news of Jen's departure. And beyond that, we are going to have a discussion with council probably next month when the WARF quarterly update is complete and ready for viewing, to talk about when the appropriate time is to review this information, because as we get further into construction, invoices are coming in a little bit later and they're far more complicated. So there's a lot more work involved to nail that information down. We want to bring complete and error-free information to this committee, especially when we're talking about a 30-page document. And so we'll be talking to the council soon about, when's the appropriate time to bring that forward. It may be that it's actually a month and a half or 2 months in arrears. It gives us the time to ensure that data is all up to speed. And so that's, again, something we'll discuss with council, and that may have implications in terms of the scheduling with CFAC. So we'll want to make sure that's synced up well with this committee and get your input on that. And also when the WARF quarterly update is complete for that September date, we will also share that with CFAC members so that you can prepare comments that you typically could do as a full committee, as individuals, to share with council. So again, our apologies for the delay on that, but I think moving forward, this kind of demonstrates the need to reevaluate the schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any other announcements from committee members? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the public comment period. Zeke, are there any members of the public who have raised their hand to make comments?
There's one in the queue that's, but there's no hand raised on it. So
okay.
We have John in the queue, but no hand raised.
Okay.
May I make a public comment?
Sure.
Okay. I just wanted to take this opportunity not to say goodbye to Jen, because I'm going to stop in and do that personally. I think she knows how much I appreciate her and how much I'm going to miss her. But I just wanted to let this committee know it's been a privilege to be your liaison for the last 2 years. And I appreciate all of the hard work that you've done and the contribution that you've made to our city. And I'm going to miss all of you. I'm going to miss being your liaison when I'm off the council. And I notice at your next meeting, I will be off the council. So good luck to all of you. And I will keep tabs on you.
Thank you, Marlis. And I also noticed that we have a vacancy on our committee.
Okay. All right. And I've been there before, so I know exactly what the job entails. Thank you, John.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on to the consent calendar then. Approval of minutes for the July 21st, 2020 regular Citizens Oversight Finance Advisory Committee meeting. Do I hear any changes or what do you detect any errors in there, anybody? Okay, no one is commenting. I did have one thing in my notes that I didn't see in the minutes, and that was in the public comment portion of the meeting, a gentleman named Dan, and I'm sorry I didn't get his last name, maybe one of you knows his name, but he did make a public comment about the wharf construction, and if I I remember, I think his comment was something to do with not having a change order for the stream alteration amendment work that was going to have to be done or was being done. I didn't see that reflected in the minutes. I don't know how important that is, but it did say that there were no public comments in the minutes.
I believe it was Dan Sedley, John, and we can add that he added comment. The video had gotten cut off a little bit in the beginning, and we weren't sure. But now that you say that, I think he did make that. So we can just add a broad note that he made public comment.
Okay, thank you. So with that, do we have a motion to approve the minutes with that one correction?
I'll move. This is Lois.
Okay.
Barbara,
Motion by
I'll second.
Lois.
I'll second, Barbara.
Okay, Barbara, second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Carry 6-0. Okay, on to the business items. Pretty short agenda on the business items. The first item is a brief update from our finance director, Jennifer Calloway. Jennifer?
Thank you. So I was going to save my comments for this section, so that's why I didn't speak earlier, but want to really extend my appreciation to the committee. Since I've been with the committee, I felt like we've had a really collaborative process moving forward. And I don't know, many of you might not know this, but I really like quotes. So, it makes me think of a quote from Helen Keller that alone we can do so little and together we can do so much. And that is really kind of the ethos, I think, that your city team is trying to live by. And that includes the council, that includes all of the committees, CFAC, being a very important advisory committee to the council, your city team and your city staff here in the community. And really kind of encapsulating that, accomplishing so much more when we work together. It's been a great experience, under Scott's leadership as city manager. He's really empowers the employees and the team internally to take chances, think outside the box. And that really has resulted in a rock solid together city team and in that rock solid together plan that we wrote as a result of COVID, really has become our ethos. So I hope that continues forward. I have no doubt that it will. The finance team here has been such a gift to work with. Really come to work every day, even during the challenges, because I'm so excited just to see the people in this building and the people in the other buildings. And, we just enjoy being together. And I think that's created a really wonderful culture within the organization. So I thank Scott for that. I thank the ladies in the finance department. I told the potential person that will be filling in as an interim, they truly are a gift. They're wonderful. They're incredibly smart. They all know what they're doing, and you guys are going to be just fine. And everything we accomplished is not because of me. It's because of us as a team. So thank you for your confidence, and thank you for all your work and support. And it means the world to not just me, but our entire team in here internally. So thank you. Now for the real finance director update, we have the auditors working remotely this week. So this is our field work week. They did not come again because of COVID. So we have scanned everything to them. Sandy and I were just talking about this earlier. It feels so weird because we don't feel their presence here and we haven't really heard much from them. So we're like, are they working on our stuff or not? But we think they are. They're supposed to be. And I guess no news is good news. So we expect things to go very smoothly with that. I have been creating a pretty detailed list for the interim person so they will know where to pick up when they are starting with deadlines and dates. So you shouldn't see much delay in many of the reports you get. So that'll be good. And ladies are all kind of doing some final cross training in different areas so that they'll be able to provide some assistance too. So I think we got everything covered for the transition period. And a little bit of good news, TOT for the month of August. You all know that our receipts are delayed. TOT for the month of August 2020, finally back to where they were in August of 2019, about $7,000 more. So that's really good news from a financial perspective. If that trend continues, we should be able to use less reserves this fiscal year than originally budgeted. If you remember, there's about $1.2 million budgeted to help balance this year's budget because of COVID. So hopefully we'll be able to rely less on that as we progress through the year. Although I remain, ever so cautious with that, not knowing what will happen with COVID this fall and winter if we're going to see spikes again. So just something to keep an eye out on and be aware of. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions for Jennifer?
John, Barbara, I have a quick question. Jennifer, I know April, I guess March and April and even May was TOT was significant lower. What happened June, July, and August and all that, or what's the overall? I think at one time we said it was 50% lower, but with the good August report, do you have an update to that?
Sure. So I'm going to open it up while I'm talking here so I can give you fairly precise numbers.
Right. So many people are commenting on the crowds here. So that's why I was kind of getting maybe a 6-month brief if you have it, just approximate.
Yeah. So March, April, May, and June were all significantly lower than they were. March, April, May, and June of 20 were significantly lower than they were in 19. And actually, the reports are available on the website, so you're able to look at them if you'd like to. I can send the links to them. But overall, for that period, March, April, June, we collected about $540,000 in this past fiscal year compared to the $1.2 million that we usually collect, or that we collected in 2018. So it was a significant decrease in that period. June, which was surprising to me, was still about $100,000 less than it was the year before. And we were fairly busy in June, if you remember that. And then for July, we collected about $85,000 less than we did in July of 19.
Okay, perfect. So it started ticking up in June and July.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Just jump right in. Okay, seeing none. Jennifer, I have something that's a little anecdotal, I guess, but my wife's involved with the Morro Bay Art Association, and they were looking for a hotel to put up an out-of-town artist for some kind of workshop for next year. She spoke to one of the proprietors of a hotel here in Morro Bay, and he told her that he could charge twice as much for the rooms right now, and he would still be full. They're totally full right now, and he's never seen an off-season start this way. So I'm not sure exactly what the what the phenomenon is, but maybe it's just that people not being able to do other more long distance traveling or choosing places like Morro Bay closer to home, and that's why hotels here are full right now.
Yeah, some of the kind of anecdotal information we're getting is or seeing people want to go where they can be outside and recreate outside, away from cities. So it's the mountain communities and coastal communities that are being impacted. Of course, several of the beaches down south were closed, so I think that pushed people up this way. Pismo has actually had increased TOT since COVID has started, not in March, but because their visitation has been so high. And their hotels did kind of the opposite of what ours did, in that they increased their rates, their daily rates. Our hotels had lowered theirs, thinking they wouldn't have visitors to try to attract people. And, obviously a lot of people still came, but they had some of those rates were locked in for a period of time. So we're finally seeing daily rates catching up and getting back to where they were, a year ago. So that's helpful. We also heard from some of our hoteliers that families were coming from the valley or wherever and putting, 8 or so people in one room. So really packing a room, and then that obviously makes, there'd be more people in town. You don't typically have 8 people in a room. So there was some impaction that way as well.
Wow, that's a lot of people for one room.
I can't even imagine how it works. Can't.
The other thing that you were talking about back in the early days of the COVID outbreak was the impact it was having on the stock market and the potential impact it was going to have on CalPERS rates. And I noticed that CalPERS released their preliminary returns for the fiscal year ended June 30th, and it was 4.7% up. So not as bad as what it didn't reach the 7% goal that they had calculated everything on, but it wasn't the catastrophe that we had feared it was going to be. Do you have any comments on that?
So yeah, not as bad as we had thought. So that's the good news. The League of Cities just had their city manager, city conference, and there was a CalPERS update on that. And I think based on that discussion, the expectation is that the discount rate will be lowered to either 6.5% or 6%. That they just don't. That was what was communicated. That cities should start thinking and preparing for that if they're not already. But there's been no formal action taken on that. But I would expect that's the direction that they will go.
Okay, so you really haven't seen a big spike in rates for next year?
Not beyond what we had planned. We had to estimate a little bit, so we didn't hit it exactly, but not more significantly than we thought. Obviously, if the discount rate changes and goes down, that will result in big increases to the city. Okay. Whenever that happens, there's a significant impact.
Okay. On the quarterly report for the wastewater facility, those additional roles that we're supposed to fill, the additional work we're supposed to do on that in regards to the cash flow analysis and the WIFIA and the SRF loan compliance and those things. Is that going to be done by Eric now and be integrated into the quarterly report, or is that something that the person who will be taking your place is going to be doing separate from that?
So, I can't fully speak for the next person sitting in this chair. My thought would be I liked doing it because then it's completely independent of Eric. We keep track and finance what reimbursements we're submitting because we're doing that when they come in. Eric did take over the final SRF one because there were some conversations he had with SRF, and that was the planning loan piece. But finance is doing the WIFIA reimbursements, intends to do the SRF reimbursements once the construction loan is finalized. Janine in Public Works is the lead on processing those, and she's got that system down really well. Sandy has a spreadsheet. We keep a spreadsheet here in finance just to keep track of what comes in, and that's what we shared with you in the last quarterly report. It seems fairly simple to me to keep that in the finance department. But again, I don't want to speak for whoever's sitting in the seat and what they decide in terms of, how they want to divide out the responsibilities. But that would be my thought.
John, I didn't exactly follow. There was a resolution some time ago now by the council assigning 4 tasks to CFAC. Did I miss something? Was that resolution withdrawn or reassigned? Or is this a different topic you're talking about?
No, that's the right topic. We only received one full installment of that. That was the last quarter's work that Jennifer had done. But I was just curious with her leaving if that was something that was going to be handed off to Eric to do and be integrated in his quarterly report, or is that going to stay with staff? And it sounds like that really hasn't been determined yet.
I'm still not clear. The resolution can clearly be withdrawn, no question. Something you can act, you can disenact. But there was a resolution to assign work to CFAC. It was never fully transmitted to us. We just know about it because we watched the public meeting where it was discussed, but no one ever transferred that. Is there a suggestion here that it's not going to be and that resolution will be withdrawn? Or what is the status of the action that presumably the next CFAC meeting, which would have been at least a couple of meetings ago, would have been assigned to us? So maybe Jennifer, you can explain, or Marlis, since you're on the council, could one of you explain what the status of that resolution is?
Well, let me just add a little bit here, Bart. At our July meeting, Jennifer prepared a report which included almost all of the information that is requested in that council resolution. The things that she can't do yet have to do with the SRF loan, because the SRF loan isn't finalized yet. But I think everything else she covered in her report.
Well, I don't know that it was complete. Sources of funds are multiple issues. One is WIFIA, where there is language that says where you can get up to 62 million or 625, but there is verbiage that says up to. So I don't know if that means actually 62 or up to 62 million. There's a suggestion that we can get an amount equal to that from the SRF, and the other source of funds is $17 to $25 million collected for infrastructure replacement. So sources of funds are not just those two. And I don't recall any discussion where it was noted about what the action is going to be relative to the full financing, which now has gone clearly north of 130 as to how all of that's going to be done. I don't recall Jennifer ever talking about the source of funds, particularly relative to infrastructure. And again, no one's ever explained what up to means.
Maybe I can make a suggestion here. So in the July WARF quarterly report, tried to address those elements in the resolution, with the idea being if the committee wanted to see something different or something more, it would at least start the conversation. You'd have a starting point. I think bringing this up as a future agenda item, because you know we'll have another quarterly report coming to the committee. I would think you'd get similar information that was provided in July. But I appreciate your point about source of funds. When we signed the WIFIA loan, I think it was at the council discussion, indicated that we were signing at the maximum amount at the time, which was about half the project, up to $63 million. And we used the term up to because of how low the interest rate was. We wanted the ability to fully draw upon that money if that was the choice of council, but we're not locked into drawing upon all that. So we don't need to seek reimbursements for that full amount. And I think it's a fair point that be part of the discussion in the quarterly report. It's a little bit hindered until we get SRF signed. I would expect for SRF that we would have a similar language of up to, the maximum amount we can, given that interest rates, again, are probably going to be very low. We're not earning as much in LAIF anymore as we used to, but that's going to change over time, and we'll be locked into interest rates with WIFI and SRF. So once we have that finalized with SRF, that's where I really see that source of funds conversation being very critical. Do we want to fully finance the project, or to the extent that we've signed loan amounts for, and provide options for the council to consider with either advancing capital or whatever other options there are with the cash we have on hand. So I think that conversation is coming, but there's that piece missing still with SRF not being signed, and also finalizing the pipeline contract. Those are the final two pieces. But I would, add that as a seeking conversation with the future agenda item for the next WARF quarterly report, and maybe have a more elaborate discussion of what you want to see with respect to that, use of funds conversation.
So, Jennifer, since this quarterly report is going to be going to the council before we see it, is that going to be included in the staff report, or will that be omitted? The analysis of those additional items that were assigned to us.
I don't know if Scott wants to jump on here again, because I'm not going to be here. I would expect the same information that you got in July to be included with the council report for the next WARF report. The conversation about use of funds, that we just went through, may be still preliminary if we don't have SRF signed. And again, that would be a valuable conversation for this committee to have as to what you're looking for with that topic.
Yeah, I would agree with what Jen said. We won't have any new information, in a week or so, based on where things are at with SRF. We're just starting the legal review with them now, so based on how long it took from that point to get WIFIA lined up, it's probably several months before. So I think it'd probably line up with another discussion with CFAC. And it may be associated with a quarterly update, or it might be a standalone item. But one way or another, we'd love to get input from the CFAC on that.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments for Jennifer on this item? Okay, hearing none. Zeke, are there any members of the public interested in commenting on this item?
Still one person in the queue, but nobody has raised their hand.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on then. Next item is review of the fiscal year 2019-20 fourth quarter investment report. Jennifer?
Yeah, so thank you for meeting to review this. Because our last meeting was in July, we didn't have a chance to bring this to you before. And we'd like to bring it to this committee before taking it to council. So this will be the final data piece to upload to our auditors once it's approved by the council next week, or hopefully approved by the council next week. And this is, the standard report that you've seen. The city's portfolio is yielding slightly less than LAIF at this point. So as of June 30th, LAIF was 1.47%. Our entire weighted portfolio is about 1.2%. Just to give you an idea, since June 30th, as of now, LAIF is at 0.685%. So it has dropped pretty significantly. Again, that's going to be temporary, and we're locked in with WIFIA at 0.83%. So I would still recommend keeping your cash for the time being. Expect interest rates will go up, and you'll start earning more than we're paying on the WIFIA loan. But we do have, a fairly significant amount of cash built up, 15.6 million in LAIF. I know we have shows on here 5.5 million in our sweep account. That was as of June 30th, and we're having to transfer back and forth a little bit more regularly to meet our payments that go out. So we just made a transfer at that point, expecting some large bills for WIFIA. So that's why you see the 5.5 million in there. But as of the end of August, we've transferred over $10 million into LAIF, and that's mostly WIFIA reimbursements and about $5 million in reimbursements from the SRF loan. So the cash is accumulating. That'll give some flexibility, and Bart, with respect to your comments on source of funds, some flexibility on options for the council to consider with that cash. We can either use it and not fully finance the project, advance capital. So there's a number of different options there, and with these interest rates, I think it's an ideal time to have those conversations as soon as the final pieces are in place. Very liquid at about 93%. And at the bottom of that page, Barbara, I think this is what you were mentioning. It says the portfolio holdings as of the third quarter, and that should be changed to fourth quarter. So if this is approved, I'll make that change before it goes to council. We have submitted 5 reimbursements to WIFIA, and we've received all of that money at this point at $7.1 million. While we were in this meeting, Janine just sent the 6th reimbursement request, so that should come in by November 15th for another 1.2 million, I think, 1.3 million. Forgetting the number right now. And we have the final disbursement for the SRF planning loan. We submitted, if you recall, that had been returned with part of planning disbursement number 2 for some costs they weren't allowing. So we repackaged reimbursement request number 3 and have that submitted now. So that should hopefully come in soon and close out the balance of that loan. When SRF is finalized, the planning loan will roll into the construction loan. So that'll make it easier from a reimbursement or a payment process moving forward once the project is complete. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, are there any questions for Jennifer on the investment report?
I have a question regarding the planning loan. I didn't hear you clearly, Jennifer, but after the reimbursement request number 3 is submitted, is there still a balance? Will there still be a balance outstanding?
There should not be. We have submitted enough requests at this point to cover the full $10.3 million. So assuming that they approve everything in the final disbursement request, we should have fully maxed out that loan.
And again, I didn't hear you clearly. And you anticipate receiving that number 3 request by the end of the year?
You didn't hear me because I didn't say an anticipated arrival time. I would think by the end of the year we should have it. We've had lots of conversations about this, so I would suspect by the end of the year.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? All good? Okay, so we'll move on to the next poll. Are there any public comments?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay, thank you, Zeke. So next item, future agenda items. So there is no meeting in November, so the next meeting will be in December. And what do you have? What will that next person have for us, Jennifer?
Let me just add a little bit, if you don't mind going back. So this committee is aware, it was on our last kind of fourth quarter budget adjustments where we do some cleanup stuff that was presented to council. We have transferred the wharf surcharge amounts, the water and the sewer pieces, to WIFIA reserve funds that we have set up in the water and sewer fund categories. So the water fund now has a WIFIA reserve fund. The sewer segments has a sewer reserve WIFIA reserve fund. And in order to keep that very clear where those wharf surcharges are, at the end of the year, we transferred the money into those accounts. So it'll be very open how much is sitting in there, and can accumulate towards payment of the debt service. And to give you an idea of how the reimbursement process is working, our LAIF balance as of today is $29.7 million. So, this report was as of June 30th, but we have been working that cash flow pretty effectively. So, thanks to Janine and Sandy and Belle and really monitoring that closely. So for the December meeting, you should have a first quarter budget performance report, first quarter investment report, an update on the CAFR and the audit situation. I believe the committee's recommendation was to review the CAFR after it had been finalized and complete. So it won't be the detailed review that we had last year at that point, but you can have an update on the status of that and where the audit is, how the audit's going. And then we also usually do a Measure Q fiscal year 1920 review of expenditures.
And on that note, Jennifer, could somebody there, along with that report from Measure Q, could we once again get the general ledger detail along with the actual report?
Yep, and I will write that in my little notes right now so that doesn't get lost. It's noted.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And I'd like to ask the other committee members, in regards to the quarterly WARF report, it's obviously going to go to the council before our meeting in December. But in regards to those additional tasks that we are still not, sounds like we're still not certain about, would there be any merit to having that as an agenda item for discussion in December to look at the previous quarter's report and the additional information as we discussed, even though it's after the fact, even though the City Council has already received that quarterly report?
John?
Yes, Homer, go ahead.
Considering that the City Council will have already received and filed it, we might as well wait until February when we get the most current report to review. Plus, based on what Jennifer just said about what's on our December agenda, it sounds like there'll be 3 or 4 other fairly significant items. So I'm not sure that we would be, sort of after the fact. And anybody that's interested can just look at the City Council staff report and the report when it's presented to the City Council in November. Then, Well, I'm not even sure the city council is going to see it, matter of fact. Jennifer, will the city council even see the September 30th report, considering their own calendar? I mean, they usually are dark. The fourth meeting the second meeting in November and the first meeting in December are pretty much consumed by the new city council. And then there's no second meeting in December. So were they going to be able to even look at this thing until January?
Yeah, they'll see it before January.
Okay.
I've got some thoughts on this. It was unfortunate that we didn't have the full discussion. The report itself, it should be noted, this is the second quarter in a row that Carollo and the city staff had an issue getting it out. Something that's the reason for it is expenditures that come from the city. At least I assume that's the issue. Something that's, I think, more significant than expenditures, and that's committed costs. So city needs to understand that committed costs are clearly above recorded costs. So we were probably, I would presume, at least 40 to 50 million. That would be equipment that's been ordered that we haven't paid for. So if somebody wanted to pause or stop the project, the costs associated with that are much more than what is perceived, I believe. Relative to the schedule, Carollo said that they would re-baseline schedule once a year. I went in to look at the items that were scheduled between July when they did it and now. And the very first one I came to was the reclamation. That has been rescheduled out 6 months. So clearly there are problems associated with the schedule. The conveyance NTP was also rescheduled out past the election. That's a key date. On the forecast, with the land acquisition, conveyance, and everything, there's a good chance we're approaching 140 million or 20 more than what was in the rate analysis. Relative to the rates, which is pretty much the issue that the council is hanging their hat on, the $40 million in debt or debt service savings, clearly that's a very, very good thing. The council should be applauded for that. Probably half of that 40 million is due to COVID. So we're sort of losing relative to general funds, but we are taking advantage of lower interest rates because of COVID. It also pointed out that
Bart, let me jump in here.
I just some more comments.
I just want to. Okay, so the question really is: do you think that it's worth discussing at the December meeting? And it sounds like you want to discuss it now, but it's really not on our agenda now. So I'm assuming from your comments that you think it would be worth discussing at the December meeting.
It is worth discussing. It would have been worth discussing today. All these things are things that can be discussed without the report. In the last, I'm just about done. It should be noted that the $40 million is debt service. So the net present value of that 40 is more like $20 million. So they're not equal dollars. And basically going back to my infrastructure, yes, we can probably keep the rates in line, but we're using all the money that was collected for infrastructure. I'd like to be shown that that's not true, but I sense that the way that the rates are being kept is that we're going to need another 218 for infrastructure. And yes, I do think more discussion for the biggest project that this city has seen. It seems like we're taking a pretty cavalier approach.
Okay, thank you, Bart. Anybody else want to comment on the idea about having this as a discussion item on our December agenda?
So, John, this is Tina. Clarification question. This is the quarterly report that the City Council will have already weighed in on, and that's your primary question, right? Not just.
Well, not exactly. It really is in regards to the other tabs. So we have two separate things: the quarterly report that Eric provides,
right,
or produces, and then the other items having to do with the cash flow and the performance of the loans and compliance with the loans and those types of things. we really don't have that really nailed down. And I wondered if that conversation would be worth having at the December meeting.
Right. Okay. Before I answer my point to that, the last time we had a quarterly WARF report done, it's always taken up a huge amount of time, and we've run up against the clock. And so it's my concern that we don't have an adequate amount of time to cover some of these issues in the depth that they would require. And adding the WARF report itself already late, if you will, I'm not sure that is a good idea because of all the other things on the agenda. So I'm thinking that's a problem for me, unless we somehow can allocate more time to our meeting. The additional tasks definition and the loans, et cetera, those things that have not been defined clearly, I feel they should be on the agenda. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is Lois. I would agree. I do agree with Tina.
Okay.
Fully, 100%.
Thank you, Lois. Anybody else?
John, I've got a possible compromise. What happens if we put the most current monthly report on the December agenda?
It's outside the scope of the CPAC, so you'd want your council to weigh in on that.
Why is that outside the scope of CFAX? We're the organization that said we didn't want it, that we didn't want the monthly reports. We started with the monthly reports.
Yeah, the council has said, it's the quarterly reports. So if we want to get sort of back into that discussion of, who's on first, again, we can do that. I just think that we would have to formalize that discussion at council.
It's not worth it.
But, the bigger question I hear is somewhat, those 4 added things that Mayor Heading added to an item, having more clarity on that would be helpful to this committee. I'm hearing pretty universally that's true.
Yes, I agree. And I'm fine with and even within those 4, the sources and uses of funds is my big issue. The rest of them all fold into that. So if we're going to spend time, that's the one we should focus on.
Okay, so Jennifer, how about if we add it to the agenda but put it last?
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
So I haven't looked at the calendar, John, if I may. Is it appropriate for me to interrupt you? And
you go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. I haven't tried to figure out the cadence of things as the months roll forward. And, December, the new council, and then starting in January, our calendar new year. When do we ever overlap with the timing of the quarterly WARF report where it's not after the horse has left the barn, so to speak?
Well, we have a couple things, several things this year in 2020. Of course, COVID has screwed everything up.
Right, totally.
The other change in 2020 was that our meetings went from 12 to 7.
Exactly.
And then the other thing being that Eric was formally producing a quarterly report about 14 days after the quarter end. Mm-hmm. And now he's saying that because of all of the invoices that are coming in, it's impossible to do that. So we have a delay in him producing that quarterly report, which now is not in conformance with the 7-month schedule that we already adopted.
So the algorithm says we're not going to catch it at the timing based on those.
Well, I think as Scott said, I think we need to revisit the calendar that we already adopted for the 7 months. Maybe we have the dark months or the wrong months.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that because I've actually had an issue with the calendar, and being new, I didn't have any experience, but I don't really love the calendar.
Well, John, we're okay. We're okay for the first half to conform with the new schedule for the quarterly reports. It would just be the second half that would need to be slightly modified.
So then, Homer, you think maybe we ought to take up a consideration of amending the calendar at maybe January or February meeting?
That's fine. Listen, depending on what happens November 3rd,
right?
all the rules could change completely. And so, but we are okay. We have a scheduled meeting in February, which would cover the second quarter. We have a scheduled meeting in May, which would cover the third quarter.
Okay.
And all we need to do is, I mean, depending on what the city council does, I said, there's a new city council, they could go ahead and take the whole responsibility away from us and give it to a whole new group, for all we know. I mean, there's a campaign to do that. So I think we're okay, for the short term.
John, I agree with Homer. We've got enough on the December, and I think the most important right now is the Measure Q, because that is our chief delegated responsibility. And for those other points, yes, we can discuss later. I think what happened is that resolution, as Bart said, was passed either late January, early February, and then the impact of COVID hit. So I've been looking at that as well, and some of it was we were going to do some analysis on rate impact, but there was going to be another rate study. We don't have that. They don't have some of the contracts back. So I believe we can get to all that. And I don't think it was an intentional omission. It's just we just got caught up in some other things. So let's just go with the items we have for December. And then, as Homer said, we're good for the first 6 months. And if we have to adjust the schedule after that, we will.
Okay, Barbara, I agree. The Measure Q is the most important thing. That should take priority at our meeting in December.
Can I make a comment about Measure Q quickly? Jennifer, would it be possible to be sure that the interim provides us with a balance sheet, an income statement, a budget performance report, and an accumulated transaction report?
I had accumulated transaction report, but I'll add budget, performance report, balance sheet, and income statement.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
So, hey, Barbara, clarification. I wasn't suggesting anything about the December agenda. I was just trying to understand the cadence and how it was going to roll forward, because I hadn't looked at the implications. And I'm concerned that obviously the city council is going to change out from underneath of us, and possibly the mayor. So,
I'm sorry. Sure. I didn't mean to imply you were.
Okay.
John, is that meeting December 15th, the third Tuesday? That's probably a little better. It doesn't butt up too close to Christmas.
I'm assuming it is. I didn't actually check that.
That should be the date that it is. I can confirm that.
Yes, the third Tuesday, 15th, yes.
That may be that may be a problem from a timing point of view. In terms of the length of our meeting, that's a city council meeting.
The third Tuesday?
Oh, I'm sorry, second Tuesday.
Yeah, our meetings are always on the 3rd.
Well, when is the? Well, I guess it depends on when the election is certified, right?
Right.
I don't know when that is, but potentially
December 3rd. Statutorily, it has to be complete by then.
it has to, okay. So the council's on the 8th, and then you'll have the swearing in and goodbyes and stuff on the 7th.
Yep.
And so Marlis really does get out of it, doesn't she?
He does.
That's why I'm saying goodbye now.
There she is.
Not till every last mail-in vote is counted.
Right, 17 days.
Okay, well, I think we've pretty much killed it today. Anything else from anybody? All right, so we'll be meeting again on Tuesday, December 15th, and it'll be, I'm sure, by Zoom again. So we'll see you all then.
well, actually, before Marlis goes, I wanted to say thank you. And I did want to know, is the person who will replace you, Marlis, are they going to be our liaison? Or will the new city council decide that? Or is there?
That is up to the new mayor.
Okay.
Whoever is elected mayor is the one who decides who the liaisons will be.
Thank you. Anyway, thank you. I didn't get to see much of you because we got separated with the COVID and we were just starting to get to know each other. But
I know.
Yeah, clearly, thank you for everything you've done for me, and see you around.
Oh yeah, I'm still going to be around.
Yeah, I figured.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Marlis. Okay, and with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye. Good luck.
Good luck. Yep.